A bar chart can be used to display numerical levels. So basically in a bar chart, numerical levels of a category are represented by bars. Values are plotted on one axis of the chart and the levels are plotted on the other. The value of each bar determines the length of the bar. So if you have seen the previous videos, you've seen how the bar chart looks like. So the bar in the bar chart can be plotted horizontally or vertically. When they are plotted vertically, they become the column charts. Okay, we will understand the difference between the two shortly. Right. So we have understood what a bar and column chart is in basic terms. Now, when to use a bar or column chart? When do you need to use that? Okay. So you choose bar charts when you have to display large number of data sets on the category axis. In such a case, using column chart doesn't make sense. For example, take a look at these charts. Which chart do you think makes more sense? Now, the first one is a column chart. The second one is a bar chart. Don't just look at it visually. Look at the data that it is plotting on top. See, the numbers are not clear. They are, overlapping others. So the first one is not clear. The second one is clear. It is organized. Yeah. So it is not cluttered. Basically, the clarity is there. So this is what you have to decide when you have lesser data. Okay, then you can choose either of them. For example, look at these two charts. The same data can be plotted in a column chart as well as bar chart because the data is less. So how do you decide which one to use? Again, it depends upon your audience. What would they like to see? What are they comfortable with? Okay, in such a scenario. Okay, so the bar and column charts basically are favorites of many because reading them makes it much easier for the audience to spot patterns or trends than reading a table of data. If you look at these two, they're pretty simple. But when you go towards more complex charts like scatter, area charts, some people are not comfortable with that. They're very comfortable with column chart and bar chart, and probably that's the reason why, like I said, these are the favorites. Okay, so let's go ahead and create our column and bar charts. Let's move to Excel. Okay, so this is our data. Here I have some sales data for 4 publishers for the year of 2022, and in the last column we have the year-to-date sales. We will use this data with our charts. Okay, now let's say I want to show the monthly sales of the publisher Nintendo, which is this one. This is the monthly sale. We have the months here and the sales here. We will be plotting large values for 12 months. So you see, these are large values and it is for 12 months. So what chart do you think will be better for this? Would that be a column chart or a bar chart? Obviously, we just saw in PowerPoint that a column chart can make it messy. A bar chart is a better option for this. So I'm going to show you 2 ways to plot the data. The first way is what I did in the last session. So what you do is you select the data like this. Yeah. Then you click on the insert tab. And then here in the charts group, you select 2D bar chart, yeah, and you click on it, and we get a basic chart, a bar chart. This is a very, very basic chart. The other way to create the same chart is not to select the data, but click outside, okay, and then click on insert, again, click on 2D bar. So we get a blank chart. Okay, so how do we add data to this? Again, this I've covered in the previous video. What you have to do here is click on insert. Once you've done this, obviously the chart is done. Go to chart design and select data. You remember the screen from the previous video, guys? Select data source. So here you can either select Jan to December, and if you press OK, you'll get the data, which is the same as this chart. Or what you can do is you can add individual series. So you say add. Okay. So once you create this blank chart, click on select data, and you'll come to edit series. In the series name, select sales 2022, and in the series values, it's going to be this data, and click on OK. In the edit section, in the horizontal category axis label, click on edit and select the months and click on OK. Click on OK again, and we have got a chart. Now the difference between these two charts is this has a title which is tied to this cell. So any change that I do here will also reflect here. So if I make it 2023, see how it gets reflected here as well. You can do that here as well, but for that, as I mentioned in one of the previous sessions, select the chart title, press the equal to sign, and then select the cell. Now, when this cell changes, this title will change, both of them. So if I type 23, see both of them changes. So since both of them are same, I'm going to delete the left chart and I'm going to use this particular chart. Now let's go ahead and let's format our chart. I'm going to, what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly show you how am I formatting it. I've already spoken about this in the previous session. So right click on the series sale 2022 and then click on format data series. You'll get the format data series pane. You remember this pane? I covered about this in the last video. Okay. Now the bars are very thin here, yeah, and they are very far from each other's. So let's okay, let's do one thing. Let's increase the size of the chart. How do I increase the size of the chart? The first is you can manually do this, or you can go to the format tab and you can change the size here. Okay, so for example, if I want to make it 9.27, I can do that. Similarly, if I'm deliberately using decimals so that you know that even you can use decimals. Okay, the chart is now 9.27 by 12.97. Okay, let's go back to where we were. Format data series. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce the space between them. You can do that by decreasing the gap width. Okay, right now it is 182%. So you can manually reduce it. So if you do that, obviously it's a very minimal thing, so you'll not see the difference. If you make more, see how the width is decreasing between two graphs. If I put, let's say, 16, now it looks nice. Okay, so this is how we can reduce the width. Let's also add some data labels to the chart. Do you remember how to add data labels? Right click on the series again and click on add data labels. Okay, you will notice that the data labels are on the outer end. If you want to leave it like this, you can. There's nothing wrong with this. It's still looking very clean. It's not cluttering, so you can do that. Yeah. Or you can also move it to inside end. So how do you do that? Right click on data label and click on format data label. So you can move it to either center or inside end or inside base or outside end where it was. Let's keep it as inside base. The reason why I moved it to the inside base is it is all left aligned and it's looking nice. Had I done it to the inside end, then they are at different places. So you can also use this, nothing wrong with this. I'm just showing you one example. So feel free to experiment with what you like. Okay, now since we are displaying the values in the bar chart, so obviously we don't need this axis. No point keeping two of these together. So these kind of decisions you will have to take. Okay, so click on this and delete it. So the axis is gone. Now the chart has the plot area, which is this, is slightly become bigger. So you can see the values here. We also, let's do one thing, let's delete the grid lines. Okay, we'll not keep the grid lines. Okay, here, now let's say I want to compare these values to another series. Let's say Pac-Man. This is for Nintendo. I want to compare it with Pac-Man. So how do we do it? Just like we added this, you can do it with this. So either you can go to chart design and select data, or you can right click and click on select data. It's the same thing. Okay. Once you've done this, click on add. So now you are going to add a new series, which is Pac-Man. Okay. And the series values are from here to here. So that's because of this. So delete this and click on OK. Click on, oh yeah, and this obviously access label range is the month. Click on OK. And OK. Finally, the chart is made. I'm going to make this slightly bigger. Or if you want, what I'll do is I'll zoom in so that you can see it clearly. Okay. Similarly, for this, we'll also add data labels and we'll move the data labels towards the inside base. Okay. So in the future video, not in this video, but what I will do is I will show you how to automate this. So what will happen is we'll have a dashboard and then we will have, let's say, drop downs. So in the first drop down, you can select any one of these values. In the second drop down, you'll select some other value. So whatever you select in the drop downs, the chart will dynamically pick up values for those publishers and show it to you. In fact, this is a part of form controls here. So I don't know if you remember seeing in this ever. So you have combo box, form control, you have other options. I will take you through this in a later session where I'll show you how you can work with functions and these together to make the chart dynamic. So you can create dynamic dashboards. Right. So now any value that you change here, this chart will automatically update. Okay, very simple. I'm not formatting any other thing. I'm not formatting the values, even though you can. Yeah, what you can do is if you do not like the font color, go to home, change the font color to white. Yeah, similarly for this, you can change it to white. You can make it bold. These are some basic formatting, which I'm not going to get into at the moment. So this is how you create a bar chart. Now let's go ahead and create a column chart. Okay, so what I'll do is let me select all data from here to this, and then I'm going to insert, and I'm going to create a column chart. Okay, so I've created a column chart here. Now, there are times that there is a lot of things which are happening in the chart. As you can see here, I can see the sale of Nintendo, Tetris, Pac-Man, and FIFA in the month of January. But if I want to create a story around it, first of all, before I go into that, creating a bar chart and column chart is very simple. You identify what your data is, you select the data, and then you go to the Insert tab, select the relevant chart. So click on Insert and select the relevant chart, and the chart will be created. Okay. The important part is not only showing the chart, but also creating a story around it. That's what data visualization is all about. Yeah. So if I want to, let's say, create a story around this column chart, how will I do it? Let's say first I want to show what is the contribution of each publisher towards the overall Jan score. Now, if you look at this score right now, there are 4 publishers in Jan and each have their own sales. I'm just going to delete the grid lines so that you can have a clear view. Okay. So now each one is showing a different value, but there's no story around it. Okay, so let's build a story. How do we do that? So we'll show the contribution of each publisher towards the overall Jan sale. Overall Jan sale is 277,685. Okay, so I want to see what is the contribution of Nintendo, what is the contribution of Tetris, Pac-Man, and so on. So how do we do that? For this, something we'll use something which is called a stack chart. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll create the same chart again. I'll just close this. In fact, you know what? I'm going to copy this chart and I'm going to paste it here. You can do it this way as well, or you can build the chart from scratch like I did earlier. And I'm going to bring this chart down. There's something which I want to show you. Okay, so these two charts are same. Now let's change the first chart type to stack chart. You can either change the chart type from here, change chart type, or you can go to chart design and you can change the chart type from here. Okay, so let's select the stacked column and let's click on OK. Now we have a different chart. Both of them are showing the same thing, but this is showing the same thing with a different story. Okay, I get a much better representation. The height of the bar is the total sales. So this is, if you look, this is 2,50,000. So it's about somewhere here. So if you go down, go up, sorry. So it is 2,77,000. So this height of the bar is at 27,000. Okay, and each value of it shows the contribution that they did to achieve the total sale of 2,77,685. Okay, so this is another way or to display the, let's say, or compare the contribution of each publisher with each other. Now, there's another way to represent this. Okay, what I will do is, let me duplicate this chart again. Paste it here. Okay, this is what I've done here. Okay, and what I will do is, I'll change the source of the data. Okay, the reason why I'm doing this is, you will see that this height of the bar will match something. Okay, so what I will do is, now I will change the source of the data and I will plot this, which is the total sales. Okay, let's do this. Okay, right, and we will change this to a column chart. Perfect. Now if I bring this chart here, obviously the size is slightly different, but this is, if you look at this chart, you will notice the height of this chart is the same. Yeah. Now, why you will not, so visually what you will see is, you'll tell me, say it, but here this bar is smaller and this bar is at a higher thing, but here the difference is not much. So how is this similar? That is because I'm going to share a very important thing when you are creating bar and column charts. Always start the axis at 0. It should be 0 based. Here the axis is at 2,44,000. So double click on it, or you can right click on the axis and say format axis. Sorry, yeah, format axis. Set the minimum to 0. Maximum is 35, 0, maximum 35, 0. Perfect. Now if you match it, does it look the same? Yeah. So always remember to create your y-axis and x-axis should always intersect at point 0. That is, then you'll be able to do a fair comparison. So this is what I wanted to show it to you. The height of the second chart is the same as the first chart. The only difference between the two charts is the second one shows you the different compositions of the publisher sales. Okay, I'm not, if you notice that I'm not doing too much of formatting, because that's not the objective here. I've already covered how to format different chart elements in the last video. So in case you're not aware, in case this is the first time, please watch the previous videos. So go ahead and experiment with different chart elements and see how your chart looks like. Now, if I do not want to see the contribution in terms of numbers, right now I see the contribution in terms of numbers, yeah, but I want to see it in terms of percentage. So I want to know, Nintendo or FIFA right now here, what is the overall percentage to the total sales? What is their contribution? So to have that kind of chart, we will use something which is called a 100% stack chart. So this was, if you click on change chart type, if you come this side. So if you notice, this was stacked column. Right next to it is 100% stacked column. So when you click on this, see what happens. What did it do? It normalized all the bars from top to bottom. Now it's the same. Yeah. So what this does is, each bar is now 100%, and each publisher sales is a percentage of that. So this is Nintendo's contribution. This is Tetris contribution in terms of percentage. Okay. Now let me share one more interesting thing. Let's delete these charts so that we get more space. I'm going to delete these charts here. Okay. We've got some enough space here. So like I said, it's going to be an interesting thing. So please watch carefully. Let's create a column chart only for the YTD sales. So I'm going to select this. So either you can create a blank chart and then add the series, or you can directly select the relevant data and insert a column chart. Yeah, so I've got a basic column chart. So this is a column chart. Again, if you wish, you can remove the grid lines. I do not like grid lines in my charts, so I always remove it. But in case you want to keep it, feel free to keep it. Okay, you can remove the axis. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this axis and I'm going to add data labels. So remember one thing, guys. No point having the value access and the data labels together. It's like duplication of things. Either have the access or the data labels. And I would actually prefer putting the data labels because it becomes easier to read the data. Okay, now let's do one thing. Let's also do a little basic formatting to this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to apply, let's say, this particular format. So grid lines have come back. Let's delete the grid lines again. Let's delete this again. And let's format these values. So I will just decrease it like this. Perfect. So now we'll get more realistic figures. Right. So now, for example, if you want to show these values as Indian rupees and with 1000 separator, how will you do that? So you'll right click on this and you'll click on format data labels. Go to number, go to this part, go drop box and click on currency. Okay. Now I've got the rupee symbol. It's also showing decimals. I don't want decimals. So delete this and press the enter key. Once again, format data labels. Decimals did not go. That's gone. So now we have a nice little chart here with some sales, and it shows the values in rupees and 1000 separator, names of the publishers at the bottom. Great. Now, if you notice, these values are haphazard. This here we have a smaller bar, then a bigger bar, then a bigger bar, and then suddenly a smaller bar. Okay, so this is haphazard, and the moment these values change, these bars will go up and down. Okay, imagine if you wanted a bar chart or a column chart which is sorted. So either you have it in increasing order. So one bar looks like, let's say, this, the other bar looks like this, the next bar looks like this, and the next bar looks like this. Obviously, this will look much cleaner. Similarly, the reverse. So this is in ascending order, the other will be in descending order. So to achieve this, what can we do? I'm just going to clear this, and I'm going to close this. To achieve this, there are two ways. The first is the most simple way, but it's actually not simple. Okay, so what you will do is you will copy the publisher, and I'll tell you why this is not simple. And then you'll copy this, and you will, let's say, paste it here. Okay, and then you will change the chart, select data, and you will change the source data to this. Perfect. Okay, and then you'll add data labels again. I'm not going to format the data labels to rupees and 1000 separator. That's for us. I've already shown you how to do that. Okay. Now, if I want this to be in ascending order, what I have to do is I'll have to select this and then data sort, and then I'll sort it on YTD sales and smallest to largest. The moment I do that, you will notice that the chart is now in sorted manner. Correct? This is one way to do it. Let's say you make this kind of charts every week. So if you have to make this chart again and again every week, then this actually can be a tedious process, because what you're doing is you're copying this, pasting it here, sorting it, and then your chart will get updated. What if I showed you another way where you have to just do it once, and after every week, you do not have to do any kind of manual sorting. Just paste your data, just keep on updating this data, and the chart will always be in ascending or descending order. Okay. And how will we achieve that? For this, we will use 3 functions. And now you will be happy if you watch the previous videos, that you will be happy that, yeah, I know the functions. For people who don't know the functions, please watch the previous videos. The 3 functions that we will cover is index, match, and rank.eq. So if you remember, when I was discussing functions, I told you that I will be sharing a lot of functions, and these functions will be used later on with the charts. So today is that session where I'm going to use a couple of functions, these 3 functions, to show you what we want to achieve. Okay, so I've already spoken about index match. I'm not going to explain that. I did not cover rank EQ. Okay, so let's understand what rank EQ does. Okay, so this function rank EQ was introduced in Excel 2010. Before that, there was a rank function. You can use a rank function as well. There's no harm in that. It's there for compatibility reasons. Let's say I've got some students here and I've got their marks here, right? I want to find out which student secured the first position, which student secured the second position, third position, fourth, fifth, and so on. Okay. For that, we use the function called rank. So if you type equal to rank, you will notice that Excel gives you 3 functions: rank.average, rank.eq, and rank. So if you notice, there is an exclamatory mark. This exclamatory mark means that this function is there for compatible reasons. Do not use this unless and until it is required, because you never know when Microsoft will stop supporting it, or somebody has an, let's say, older version than Excel 2010. So rank EQ was the second one. Rank EQ was introduced in Excel 2010. Right. So the syntax is, once you select rank.eq and you press the start bracket, you have number, comma, reference, comma, order. This is the syntax of rank.eq. Now, if you have seen the functions videos, these 3 are called arguments. Yeah, so the first argument, if you do not understand what arguments are, guys, please watch that video. Very important. So it is looking for the first argument, which is the number. So I select 63. Okay, then I press the comma, and then it is looking for the reference. The reference is a list of numeric values to rank against. Okay, you can also supply a range of values. So I'm going to select this range. And since I'm going to copy the formula down, I don't want this range to change. So I'm going to press F4 to make it a constant. Once I've done that, there's a shortcut key, guys. If you remember, F4, select the range, press F4, and the dollar sign will come there. Okay. The third argument is, do you want to sort it as descending or ascending? So if you select descending, which is the default, it will use the rank in descending order. Now, if I copy this formula down, so this refers to this refers to this, and so on. One thing you will notice here is there are two values which are 95, and both have been assigned rank 1. The next value, since we're doing descending order, the next value is 74, and the rank is 3. What happens is when you use rank or rank.eq or rank.avg, what it does is if two values are of same value, then it assigns them the same rank. And the next value, it doesn't assign the next rank, which is second, but it skips that and it assigns the next number. So always remember that. But when you're creating charts, it's okay if they are at the same rank, because if you're creating a descending or ascending order column chart or a bar chart, they'll be at the same level. Okay, so this is how you create the rank. We will apply the same logic, okay, for our sales data. Okay, have you understood rank, guys? Because this tells me which student is at the first position, which is at the second, which is at the third, which is at the third, fourth, and the fifth. If I change this to 90, see, it becomes second. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. If this was 63 and this was 63, see what happens. They both become 4. This is how the rank function works. So I hope you understood how rank works. Now let's go back to sheet 1. This part is very important, guys. Please pay attention. Okay, and let's prepare a small table. Okay, before we do that, let's add one more column here, and we'll call it rank. Series rank, and let's apply the rank here. Is equal to rank dot eq. The number that we want is in this cell, comma. This is the range, F4, comma. Let's have it in ascending order this time, and press the enter key. So this is the rank, and pull this down. Oh, we don't need this. So this is the rank 1, 2, 3, and 4. Perfect. Step 1 done. Now let's prepare a small table. Rank, publisher, YTD, sales, and let's delete all of this. Okay. Now we have this table ready. Okay. This is what we are going to do is now we are going to insert the formulas here. So what will happen is the formula will always be in ascending order. We'll fetch the data in ascending order, and this chart, no matter what, will always show in ascending order. So first of all, type the rank 1, 2, 3, and 4. So let's get the publisher name first. So here we will use the index. Now the reason why we will use index match is, as I explained in that functions video, we cannot use VLOOKUP, because for VLOOKUP, the lookup value has to be on the extreme left, and the lookup values has to be on the right. In this manner, or rather in this case, index match is a better option. So we type equal to index, start bracket. The array that we are going to use is A4 to A7. Again, I'm going to make this a constant. Yeah, comma. This is the array. Now I want the row number. Okay, so to get the row number, I'll use match. And the value that I am looking for is this. This is the lookup value, comma. Lookup array is this. Again, this will be F4, comma. It has to be an exact match. Close bracket, and press the enter key. So I get Nintendo. Let's copy this formula down. So you will notice that Nintendo is first. So it looked up Nintendo rank 1 in this column, and it fetched the value from the left side. Similarly, for 2, it searched for 2 using match, and then it used index to find that value from here. So Nintendo, Tetris, fair enough, but the third rank is for FIFA. So FIFA automatically came up, and then we have Pac-Man. We use the same formula here as well, YTD. But this time, I do not need to pull up the publisher. I need to pull up the YTD sales. So I drag the formula here, and I press the enter key, and I get 783427. And I'll copy this down. And I have got a nicely sorted Excel chart. Now let's test this. So FIFA, or let's test which one? FIFA, yeah. FIFA is at the third position with 82,000, which is here. Let's reduce the value so that it goes below 81,000. Let's do 6. More, we need to reduce it more. Let's make it 5. You notice what happened? If I was in the third position, it automatically moved towards the left. So no matter what values you change, you do not need to sort the data manually anymore. Just create a small table with the formulas, and the data will automatically sort. Yeah, so remember this. This is done. Now moving on to the next chart, which is a line chart. So we have already covered 2 charts. We are going to move to the third chart, which is a line chart. Okay. The line chart is usually used when you have to plot data over time. Let's go to sheet 3. So we have got 2 publishers here, Nintendo, Tetris, and this is the Jan sales. So 31 days, and the sales for Nintendo, and the sales for Tetris. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's plot a line chart. So I'm going to select this, and I'm going to click on Insert tab, and I'm going to insert a line chart. So this is my line chart. Just like we had different options for column and bar charts, we also have different options for the line charts. For example, we have stack line, we have 100% stack line with markers, stack line with markers, 100% stack line with markers, and so on. Okay, so I'm not going to go through all of them. You can try it later. You can try different kind of charts. Okay, so we'll go ahead with this particular chart. You can always add markers later on. Okay, so we have this line chart. If you notice the chart that was created here, before that, if you notice, it was zero based. Here, you do not need to follow that principle. Always look for the lowest value and then set the lowest and the max value of this chart. What I usually do is I use, okay, if you look at this chart, what is the lowest value? 5,000. So you can actually set the axis. If you right click on this and set format axis, you can set this as 49,000 or 4,900. Yeah. And the top value is 5,900. So you can set this as 6,000. This is one way of doing it. Okay, so I'm going to press Control Z and Control Z. What my favorite way is I use the two functions max and min. So if you type equal to max, you remember the max and min functions, guys? Select the range and press the enter key and you get the max value. Similarly, you type equal to min and select the range, close it, and you get the min value. So if the max value is 5,800, I can safely go up to 5,900 or 6,000. It's okay. But for the lowest value, which is 5,005, I can safely have 4,900. So I can right click on it, format axis, 4,900 and 6,000. And we have our line chart. Okay. Now, the other thing which goes with a line chart is something which is called a trend line. Okay, a trend line is a chart element. I spoke about this in the previous video. So a trend line is also commonly referred to as line of best fit. Yeah, I'll not go too much into other trend lines, but I'll definitely give you a broader definition. I'll not give you the complex graphs using trend line, just basic. Okay. So trend line can be a straight line or a curved line in a chart based on the type of trend line you choose. In short, the trend line shows the general pattern or overall direction of the data. Just by looking at this data, you don't know where we are heading. So trend line can actually help. So let's do one thing. Let's go ahead and add a trend line to Nintendo data, which is the blue one. So how do you do that? In my previous video, I explained, go to chart design, click on add chart element and click on trend line. Okay. You can do it this way, or you can click on the series, right click on the series actually, and add trend line. By default, if you look on the right side, Excel adds a linear trend line. There are 6 kinds of trend lines. One, which is exponential, linear, log, poly, power, and moving average. I'll go into this in a short while. Okay, right. So just by looking at the trend line, I can see that the sales of Nintendo is dipping. It's going down. I do not need to read the lines, just the trend line, and a quick inference that I can make is that the sales are dipping. If I want to predict what would be the scenario next month if Nintendo continues with the same approach, how do I do that? For that, we use something which is called a forecast. Okay, here the dates are incrementing by 1. So I'm going to use, let's say 30 for the next month. And if I press enter, I can predict and I can say, hey, Nintendo, if you're going to continue this approach, trust me, your sales are going to go down. Yeah. Similarly, if you want, you can also now apply a trend line to Tetris. Now this trend line is going up, which is nice. Okay, let's check a 30-day forecasting. And you'll be able to say, Tetris, whatever you're doing, keep doing, do not change. You're doing just fine. Next month, your sales will go up. So trend lines really help you analyze your data. Okay. Now there are other options that you can see here, which you can use with the trend line. You can display the equation, which is this on the chart. So now this is what I'm not going to cover in this. This is very important when you are creating very complex charts with trend lines. There's statistics involved in all that. Not a part of this session. Probably we'll do it in a future session. And you can also, if you wish, add an R-squared value on the chart. The R-squared value on the chart, it depicts the trend line reliability. Though I don't need to tell you this right now, but I'm still telling you because when we are doing this later in the more complex sessions, you'll understand the value of R, how do we calculate that. A trend line is most reliable when the R-squared value is near 1. Okay, because let's click on this and display the R value. So the R value is going up, but it's still not close to 1. Here it is further down. So this is not the reliable trend line. So the R values, they help you in determining that. Yeah, so remember that. Obviously, it doesn't matter here, but remember what R value is for. Now let's briefly understand the different kind of trend lines. Like I said, don't go too much into it. Just have a brief understanding of these trend lines. We can save this for a future statistical class. Okay, I used to cover these sessions for Six Sigma, but we'll do that later on. Okay, we've already seen what a linear trend line is. A linear trend line usually shows that something is increasing or decreasing at a steady rate, straight single line. Okay, so now let's move on to the other lines. So the first one is exponential trend line. Let's go to sheet 4. Here I have some examples on how the trend lines look like. The first one is exponential trend line. It is a curved line that is most useful when your data values rise or fall at increasingly higher rates. You cannot create an exponential trend line if the data contains 0 or negative values. So if I make this 0, Excel will give you an error. You cannot create it with 0. I press Control Z. Okay. If you want to create a trend line which has negative or positive values, where the data values rising or falling at increasing higher rates, you use something which is called an log trend line. Okay. Here, if I change it to 0, okay, it's already there. So if you see, there are some negative values. Yeah. The next is a polynomial trend line. A polynomial trend line is a curved line that is used when data fluctuates. So you'll see the data is increasing, then it is falling down. So this is a very small example of sales, which is before and after COVID. Before the COVID, the company was doing fine, the sales were increasing. During COVID, everything went down and went down and down. And after that, the company could never recover. So polynomial trend line. Okay. Next to, if you click on this, I want to share this part with you though. Right. Next to polynomial trend line, there is something which is called an order. Yeah. So the order of the polynomial can be determined by the number of fluctuations in the data, or rather how many bends or hills. Those are called bends or hill. I don't know if you've seen those waves. So wave has a hill and a bend. So those, or valley, which you want to call that, they appear in the curve. An order 2 polynomial, which is 3 right now. So one moment. An order 2 polynomial trend line generally has one hill or a valley. If you keep on increasing, see what happens. This is order 4. Order 4 generally has 3. So 1, 2, and 3. So use these orders carefully. Otherwise, this is something currently it is not important, but when you're creating complex charts and you want a polynomial trend line, then you need to know how to change the hills and the valleys. The next trend line is the power trend line. Okay. Now, this is usually used when you have, let's say, race car acceleration data. Okay. It will have a more symmetrical curved line. If you look at this curve, it is very symmetrical. Yeah. This kind of trend line is best suited for data sets that compare measurements that increase at a specific rate. So if you're a driver and if you're driving a car, and if you're not a rash driver, you will gradually increase the accelerator. And if you're a seasoned driver, that increase is very specific, yeah, in a very systematic manner. So that is what I'm trying to depict here. There's a steady increase in the speed of the car. For such thing, you use a power trend line. Yeah. Remember, you cannot create power trend line if your data contains 0 or negative. Obviously, you cannot have 0 or negative here. Okay, you'll get an alert like we did earlier. The last trend line is a moving average trend line. A moving average trend line smooths out the fluctuations in data to show a pattern or trend more clearly. So what Excel does is, it calculates the moving average of the number of periods that you specify. The default is 2. So if you click on this, the default period is 2. And it puts those average values as the points in the line. The higher the period value, the more smooth the line is. So if you increase this, it becomes more smooth. Okay. Right. So this was all about trend lines. You should know when to use what. Now moving on to the last visualization, which is sparklines. Sparklines are very simple, guys. It's a tiny chart in a worksheet cell that provides a visual representation of your data. The data is represented in the forms of line or columns. To understand this, let's move to sheet 5. So I've got, let's say, these 4 publishers, and I've got their Jan to December sales. And in these cells, I'm going to create the sparklines. Now this is the same data which was in sheet 1. So nothing different. Sparklines, they are great to show trends in a restricted space. What do you mean by restricted space? Now I've got only one cell. I want to show the chart inside this. So that's a restricted space. And because of this, over a period of time, sparklines have become an important part of dashboards. You'll see a lot of people using sparklines in their dashboards because it fits nicely inside the cell. Just like the size of any chart, even the sparklines size is dependent on something, and that is the row height and the column width. So remember, if you are using sparklines, ensure you give enough space. Otherwise, the data will not be clear. The visual representation will not be clear. And this is the reason why what I've done is I have created 3 big, or rather 2 big columns and here, so that I can demonstrate how to create sparklines here. Okay, so there are 3 kinds of sparklines. If you click on insert, you'll see the sparklines group has line, column, win, and loss. Okay, so I'm going to create a sparkline in this cell for Nintendo. Select the cell, click on insert, and click on, let's create a column sparkline. When you do that, you get a dialog box where it is asking you for the data range. Select the data range. Location range is N4. If you have not selected the cell where you want the sparkline, then you'll have to choose that. Otherwise, if by default you have selected that cell address will show here, and click on OK. And this is your sparkline. Looks very nice. Okay. Now, a couple of things when you see a sparkline. If you want to reset the data, so if you notice there is no change data like we have for charts, select data. So how do we do that? For that, we have something which is called edit data. If you click on edit data, you will get the same dialog box again, and you can change the the data range. So that's one thing. You can also add these 5 markers. So high point, the moment you click on high point, see it becomes red. Okay, let's say I want to show the high point in green. So go to high point, click on green. If you want to show a low point, select low point and click on low point and red. Obviously it is very low, so you can't see that as compared to other values. So it's red. Fair enough. The other two are first point and last point. There'll be no negative value, so I'm not showing that. The first point and the last point is the first and the last point. Feel free to change the marker color. Go to first point, set it to, let's say, blue, purple. I'm just doing it. You can change it to whatever you want. Purple. So this is how you can do that. Yeah. The best part about sparkline charts is you can drag them down and it will get updated based on the data. How do I know that? Again, select this and, or rather, simply change values here. See, it's working. The next kind of sparkline is the oh, I did the line in the column actually, my mistake. Or rather, I'll change this to, one moment, and I'll move this here. So we already did column. Let's do sparkline line chart. Same way, we go to insert, we click on line. The data is the same. Click on OK, and you get a line. Again, you can show a high point, low point, first point, last point. So I'm going to zoom in so that you can see it clearly. You can experiment with other options as well. Okay, and simply copy it down, and you'll get the sparkline chart. Let's go to win-loss. So win-loss is usually used when you have negative values. So if you go to sparkline, if you take your mouse cursor over win-loss, it'll tell you sparklines are mini charts placed in single cells, each representing a row of data in your selection. Obviously, what it doesn't tell you, the name is there, win and loss, and if you look at the visualization, you'll see a negative bar as well. So let's try this. So I'm going to click on insert, sparklines, win-loss, and I'll select the data as this, and I'll click on OK. See, so you know in one of the cell you have a negative value. This is basically demand and supply. Okay, so for the month Jan to August, the company was able to create surplus orders, but in September, it was not able to meet the target. It was short by 50. Just by looking at this, you can find that out. Similarly, drag it down and the sparkline will be created. You can also have the same thing here as well. High point, low point, first point, last point. Okay. Obviously, Excel by default has colored everything to red. Don't worry. Go ahead, change the marker color. High point, make it green. Low point, keep it red. First point, make it purple. Last point, make it purple. And everything is just fine. So I'm going to zoom out. So this becomes, I mean, this really looks nice in a dashboard. So remember, guys, use sparklines. They really will help you a lot. Okay, I wanted to share something with you. Okay, let's check here. Yeah. So how do you clear the sparklines? Select the range and then click on clear. And you can remove the sparklines. As simple as that. I'm going to press Ctrl Z. So there are other options. Feel free to experiment with those. Right. Today's homework, guys.